Welcome back, Guardians. And today we're going to be talking about something that is a lot bigger than most of you have ever thought about. It seems to be in every single video I take a step back and look at the grand picture of things, saying that watch out for Oryx's sisters, they're still out there. The looming threat, I like to call it. There's also the looming threat of the Vex, but this is just my thinking of how Destiny will turn out in the end. Well, although we talk about Oryx's sisters in that looming threat, we gotta talk about the origin of the sisters in general. I did talk about it in the origin of Oryx, but I didn't go into detail as to what these things are. And this story begins on the planet of Fundament. Now, Fundament is very interesting. It was the habitat for the proto-hive, which was the hive that existed previously to the hive that we know today. Now, they did not live on Fundament. Fundament is a gas giant, much like Jupiter is, but in fact had shattered islands orbiting around the gas giant. So it was almost like the islands were floating in a sea of gas. This was due to a planet colliding with Fundament, causing the landmasses to split up. Whereas the proto-hive lived on these islands, along with other civilizations, these worm gods lived within the center of Fundament. In the Book of Sorrow, it talks about the three sisters delving deep into this giant. They passed the Leviathan, which was a disciple of the Traveler, who warned them of the worm gods. Now, the worm gods are actually the manifestation of darkness itself. That's what they claim to be, at least. You see, in Fundament, these worms, or worm gods, have been trapped there for millions of years and been guarded by the Leviathan. For anyone who would be looking for them would be stopped and possibly be turned around by Leviathan, but that's not how it went. The three sisters continued on and met with the 5 worm gods. These worm gods were described as having jaws and wings, and that are massive in size and strength. The 5 of them you may recognize as names if you ever wander the Dreadnought. There is Akka, Ir, Xol, and Yule. In good old Destiny fashion, the names are not easy to pronounce. Sorry about that. The main one to talk to the 3 sisters was Yule the Honest Worm. Yule was the one to talk to them and tell them all the history, how they've been stuck there for millions of years, and how they are very powerful. So to run it down and make it simple and basic, Yule was pretty much trying to make himself sound awesome. Trying to persuade these 3 sisters into signing a contract that works much favorably for the worms that the sisters could not get out of. So after Yule gave his speech on how awesome they are and powerful and they'll gift them everything they ever wanted, the contract was given out. I said before that the worm gods were practically manifestations of darkness itself. There are apparently 2 factions within the entire universe that is going on right now that we are unaware of. There is the deep and the sky. Quite literally, the deep of Fundament is where the worms are, and the sky is where the Leviathan was, and also the Traveler. Which, I don't know about you guys, seems pretty awesome. Maybe in about 10 years' time, we'll be decided to choose sides, the deep or the sky. But back to the story. The deep claim that existence is the struggle to exist, and the sky promote cooperation. Even though the Traveler has his own issues, where cooperation is there, humans cooperate with the Traveler, and thus having a nice, beneficial relationship between the two, whereas the Traveler helps us, we help the Traveler, because the Traveler no longer can help us. And the deep relate to the hive in a way that is much more than we will ever relate with the Traveler. Existence is the struggle to exist. The hive, or the proto-hive, were very weak. In fact, any Guardian that is under 5 with no experience to any FPS ever could easily kill a proto-hive. In fact, you might as well just walk on them. The proto-hive were pretty much like the grass next to you. You never really took much care into noticing it, and you always walk all over it. You never noticed because it never gave up a fight. All you noticed was that hive in the distance or the fallen, and that's it. But just remember, that grass is there. Maybe next time I'll do a lore video on the grass. So the contract that was offered was the sisters would take the worm god's larva into the bodies, and this would give the sisters an amazing strength, unparalleled. Having the worm gods themselves in the bodies gives them this superiority over every other hive. The sisters also gave larvae of these worm gods to all the other proto-hive, thus giving them some powers, raising them above grass to the hive we know today. The catch to the bargain of the contract was that the sisters could never abandon the worm gods. If the worm gods said to do something, they had to do it, no questions asked. If they abandoned their orders, these worm gods would just take over the bodies that they were inhabiting. If Oryx was stubborn one day and did not want to take over the Milky Way galaxy, his worm god would simply just take him over. Now, the interesting thing about the worm gods is that each of them have their own specific power. It's not known what most of them are, but Akka had his own power. The reason we know this is because Oryx, or Auryx during the time, killed Akka, obtaining the Taken power, thus becoming the Taken King, thus becoming Oryx, thus becoming a dude. This leaves 4 worm gods out there, and also 2 sisters. The looming threat I so speak of is that although we have the sisters to worry about, we do have to realize that the power was given to them. It's not like they raised their strength up through practice and push-ups. They were given this strength. Now take another step back, Guardian, and look at the bigger picture. There is the worm gods, yes. There is the sisters, yes. That is the deep. There is the sky. There's Leviathan and the Traveler. The Leviathan is the only known disciple of the Traveler that we know of. There's definitely more. The deep versus the sky. This also kind of sheds some light on the darkness and the light. We say we are part of the light, and some of us say we are the darkness, but this kind of puts a rest to that rumor. The Fallen may say we are the darkness, but they'd have no idea what they're talking about. Whereas the Hive is the true reincarnation of the darkness. They literally have manifestations of darkness itself within each individual hive, the larva of the worm gods. But who's to say the worm gods were telling the truth? Although in future expansions we may kill Zavathun and Xivu-Arath, that still leaves 4 worm gods to take care of. What's not to say these worm gods are out doing something else? Maybe they are creating their own new race. Maybe after we have done with the Hive and move on to another race, I don't know, maybe a Cabal expansion. After that, maybe the worm gods approach another species, raising them higher, giving them a new power. These are just ideas. In fact, it probably will never happen, but the worm gods are there. Oryx was a big issue, Zavathun will be, and Xivu-Arath might be. Rise of Iron looks like it will be the next expansion, which will have to do with the Iron Banner in Lord Saladin. And so there are 7 more years to go, and 7 more chances at massive bundles of information. New species to arise. New threats to come. The looming threats may arrive, or they may stand idle in the darkness forever and never to be touched. But with each Destiny expansion, the view of Destiny and its darkness versus light, the deep versus sky, it just keeps getting bigger. But maybe you don't want that. Maybe you don't care about the worm gods. Maybe we'll never come across the worm gods. Maybe Zavathun will never come. Maybe Xivu-Arath will never come. Maybe we need a different DLC. Maybe we don't need the Hive anymore. Maybe we should move very far away, because Bungie seems to have, it seems to be like a soft side for the Hive and the Vex. Maybe it's time for a new species to come into light. Maybe it's time for the Cabal. But anyway guys, that's been it for me. It seems to be along the lines of Oryx's Origins, which is a video I did a while ago. So if you go check that out, you may first say, hey, this is pretty cool information and how much I've changed. So you can also comment that I was still finding my way back then. So anyways, if you stuck this long, the worms actually still have a similar speech pattern to the Ahamkara, which is just a cool note. You don't really need to know that, not really important to the lore, or maybe it is. But again, that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Later, Guardians.